Welcome to the St. Vrain Sports Report, and welcome to another great season of high school sports coverage here on Channel 8. And we are excited here on Channel 8 because we've got a brand new set, as you can see. No more orange lockers, and Blaine Robinson with us. And Blaine, a lot of exciting things going on around here, but also coming up to the new high school sports season. And thanks for being with us. And just talk about how exciting it is coming into a new season and having kind of the new digs here that you're responsible for putting together for us.
Yeah, absolutely. It is exciting. It's just always exciting. I think you and I we just sort of get that vibe this time of year. High school sports are starting, fantasy football starting, NFL football starting, college football, which you play a big role in, is starting. So it's a great time of year, and it's exciting that we're going to see what the athletes and the teams and everyone does this year.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, and Blaine and I today, we're going to break down the fall sports. We're going to preview all the fall sports, including football and volleyball, soccer, all those things. We are going to start, Blaine, with a couple of sports that are already underway. The first one being boys golf, which has been going on for a couple of weeks, and their season ends in like 4 or 5 weeks, so it's already started. But let's take a look at some of the golfers to watch, Blaine. And of course, there's always some good golfers in this area. A couple of them this year. Caleb Humble from Erie. He was 70th at state last year, so coming off a pretty solid year last year. TJ Sheehy, you see there from Meade. He was at Silver Creek a year ago, and he tied for 24th at state. And we're going to talk about why he's at Meade now here in a second. But Andrew Elliott and Jack Hoover of Niwot, both a couple of state qualifiers. And Garrett Stansel, the sophomore, back for Silver Creek, finished 38th at state a year ago. And Blaine, for me, one of the exciting things in golf this year is Meade has a program for the first time. And that's going to be a lot of fun to see. That school's growing in a lot of ways, but to see them add a golf program is big for growth in this area and gives more opportunities for players in this area.
Absolutely, and it's not only that, but it's about representing your school.
Yeah.
I was never in a scenario where I was playing for another school, but I imagine it's awkward to be, at Skyline or Longmont and then go do gymnastics for Niwot, or, in that case, play golf for Silver Creek, and you're not really representing the Meade Mavericks. So, yes, it's nice for travel and logistics and those sorts of things, but it's got to feel good just to represent your home school. Yeah,
it's very exciting for Meade to have that program. I look forward to TJ having a great season for the Mavericks. And let's move on to softball, which has already gotten underway as well, including there was a big matchup just the other day, a top 10 matchup. Erie knocked off its rival Frederick to start off the season, and Meade, by the way, they picked up a great victory against Holy Family the other day. But a couple players to watch here, Hannah Hackney of Erie and Madison Vaughn, a couple of the players that they were a part of that team that went 24-1 a year ago, lost in the state championship to Valor Christian. They're number 5 to start the year, and a couple of great players there for the Erie Tigers. Britlin Massey is going to do some good things for Frederick once again. They are number 9 to start the year. They went 14-8. Again, lost to Erie earlier this week, but they've got a ton of talent. They always hit the ball. They always run the bases really well, and always have a strong team. Jenna Moore of Longmont, she was a solid pitcher last year for a team that went 11-9. Reagan Wills of Niwot, she teams with Nikki Sims for that talented sophomore duo. They were a trio that included Taylor Nielsen there of Silver Creek, included Madison Vaughn of Erie last year, but Madison transferring over to Erie. But the duo there is Reagan Wills and Nikki Sims over at Niwot, and they should be pretty good this year. Taylor Nielsen, she transferred from Longmont, not from Niwot, but the Raptors 19-5 a year ago. They are number 6 in Class 4A, and no surprise, we've got 3 teams in the top 10 in softball. We always have good softball teams.
Yeah, we do. It's going to be interesting this year. Erie and Frederick, seems like one of them for the last 4 years has been right in the thick of things at the state semifinals or the state championship game, and usually falling to Valor.
Yeah.
But it's going to be interesting because we're going to see different faces, but the programs and the consistency of the coaches are going to help keep them up top. But most prominently, Rio Sanchez is gone, and so just some of those faces that we've been accustomed to seeing dominate on the softball field. It's going to be interesting to see who sort of takes that next leap up in the softball landscape around here.
Yeah, that's what's going to be interesting with Erie is that we've known them as one of the top programs in the state for years under Bob Bledsoe. They're doing great things with Coach Harold Reynolds. But pitching, like Blaine mentioned, Rio Sanchez has always been, the last few years, she's been right there. She's gone, so the Tigers have got to find some pitching, and They always do, so we imagine they will. So looking forward to some good things in softball. So Blaine, let's move on to a couple sports that haven't started yet, but will be getting going here next week. Fall sports will get going in full swing in about a week from now. But let's start with cross country and move on to the top girls runners to watch in this area. Emily Billow from Longmont. She was a state qualifier last year as a freshman. Sophia Maeda of Meade, she was 9th at the Class 4A state meet a year ago. Joelle McDonald of Niwot was 31st in Class 4A as a freshman. She will lead a pretty strong team over there at Niwot. And then Zoe Baker of Silver Creek, 24th last year. They have a strong program as well on that girls' side. And then Blaine, the girls' side is always pretty good around here. Niwot, that team is always really good, and looking for some good things out of Sophia over at Meade.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, but like you said, Niwot's got to be the favorite, if for no other reason than that they're always consistent.
Right.
They always get the job done. They always have a number of qualifiers, so I expect Niwot to probably, keep holding the torch for cross country.
Yeah, let's take a look at the boys runners in this area. Some of the top boys runners coming into this season. Several of them on the boys side, including Brock Dykema of Silver Creek, who was 23rd at state a year ago. You see James Lee on this list as well. He was 13th a year ago. Those two guys helped Silver Creek to a 4th place finish last year, and they will be strong once again. Kenny Lang of Niwot, he was 30th at the Class 4A state meet a year ago. And then Isaac Roberts, so we know that Roberts family, he was 7th as a freshman in Class 2A, and Lions was 2nd overall as a team. And Blaine, cross country again on that boys side, we know Lions is going to be good. That Silver Creek team is going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, there's so many parallels between cross country and track. We see some of the same names, and I know at the end of our season, we just mentioned a lot of these same names dominating at the track and field state championships in the spring season. So, I mean, you see those familiar names, they're going to be really excelling in cross country as well.
Yeah, that boys team at Silver Creek will be interesting to watch. Again, 4th last year. They'll be very good again this year. Let's move on to gymnastics, where in the St. Vrain area, there is only one team, and it's Niwot. And these are a couple of their top gymnasts coming into this year. Lindsay Chohan, she placed in the bars and vault last year. And Taylor Green was a solid freshman last year for the Cougars. And then Lily Martin, a senior, she was 7th on the floor and will be a leader for a team that is coached by her mom and won the regional championship last year. And Niwot, we expect some good things out of them on the gymnastics side once again. On to boys soccer, where there's several good players again. And here, Blaine, once again, boys soccer is going to be very good for us in this area. But some of the top players, Josh Kaderi from Erie, Kike Barrera from Frederick, Brandon Staple from Longmont. 12 goals last year. They're looking for a 3rd straight playoff appearance. Jason Rodriguez of Niwot, they went 9-7 a year ago. Connor Peskin of Silver Creek and Diego Chavez of Skyline. Now Silver Creek, Blaine, 13-3-1 a year ago. They're number 8 to start the year, and Connor Peskin, one of the top forwards in this area. Silver Creek's going to be really good again this year.
Yeah, one thing that's interesting to me is Silver Creek sort of took the mantle from Niwot, who had dominated, but that was, like we always say, consistency in coaching. Yeah. Rob Johnson went over to Silver Creek from Niwot, and you sort of see Silver Creek just ascend really quickly.
Yeah.
So I expect not only Silver Creek to be good, but Skyline once again under Luis Chavez. Like we said, they've had some really good seasons. I think only lost 5 games combined the last 2 years. Just had some tough draws, as you've pointed out on this show on more than one occasion. So I think that Silver Creek and Skyline are the teams probably to watch in boys soccer.
Yeah, that Skyline team 12-4 a year ago and had a great regular season, and once again gets that tough draw. The Skyline always, for some reason, has a great season and ends up being seeded around 25th in the state. It has to go on the road and play a tough team and wind up losing in the first round. So Skyline, almost all their starters back from a year ago, looking for some good things out of the Falcons this year in soccer once again. Let's move on to boys tennis, where there's a few state qualifiers back in this area. Now, Brendan Arndt of Longmont is not a returning state qualifier, but he is the leader for that Trojans team, which is very young, so he'll be dependent on quite a bit on that team. Riley Black of Niwot, he was runner-up at number 3 singles a year ago, and Niwot number 3 is a team, their 3rd place is a team, and they have 6 returning qualifiers this year. Brandon Nelson of Silver Creek. He was a quarterfinalist at number 2 singles a year ago, and he is one of 3 returning state qualifiers for the Raptors. And then Bryce Stewart of Skyline, a junior, he is a returning state qualifier as well. And Blaine, that Silver Creek team, we always know of Niwot, but Silver Creek, 3 returning state qualifiers, that they're going to be a team to watch as well. But those 2 teams, I think Niwot and Silver Creek, will be the teams in this area.
Yeah, it's nice when you don't really have a changing of the guard, in the sense that you know that if you had qualifiers the year before, they likely really vastly improved over the summer and worked on their games, and they're sort of going to, probably exceed expectations and get further than they did last year. It's not one of those cases for either of those 2 teams where they lost some dominant seniors and are not sure where they're going to be. These teams solidly know how they're going to perform.
And Niwot, of course, always a team that it doesn't matter what they lose because they always reload. They're the one team in that area, in this area, in tennis that reloads every single year. Let's move on to volleyball, where there's a ton of great players in the area this year, starting with Maya Michelson of Erie. She is a strong middle blocker for the Tigers. They went 15-10 a year ago. They have a new coach, Molly Creek, and so they're looking for even better this year. Annika Wetterstrom, where have we heard that name before, Wetterstrom? Well, that family is just full of athletes, and she is the latest one, and the junior, just a really good setter for the Trojans. They're looking to bounce back. 13-12 a year ago. They dealt with some injuries and just didn't really quite have it last year, but the Trojans, you expect them to be a little bit better this year and compete for the Northern Conference title. Eichel Leuenberg from Lions, a very good middle blocker. They went 20-7 a year ago and ranked number 3 in Class 2A to start the season. Abby Glynn of Meade, she's the only player back from the team that went 15-10, but she is a great player for Meade and should have a good year for them this year. Mackenzie Fidelic, finally a senior. We've been talking about her for all 4 years, it seems like, and really one of the best track athletes in this area, but really volleyball is her sport. They went to state a year ago, 18-9. They went 14-0 in the Northern Conference. They're number 6 to start the year. Have a brand new coach in Daisha Ago, and they come in looking to be even better this year with Mackenzie and several players leading the way. And then Riley Anderson from Silver Creek, who we know is a 3-time state champion in the high jump in Class 4A. Very good volleyball player as well. 22-5 a year ago. They're ranked number 8 to start the year, but she's the only returning starter. But we do expect Longmont, Niwot, and Silver Creek, I think, are going to be very good again this year.
Yeah, I think particularly Niwot and Silver Creek are going to be really, really good. Both of them had really strong seasons last year, and then, like you said, with Fidelic over at Niwot and Anderson at Silver Creek sort of leading the way in their senior year, you know they're going to want to go out strong and on top and make some sort of noise at the state tournament. So I expect both those teams to probably not only make state, but try to make a deep run.
Yeah, I expect both those teams as well. I also expect Longmont to be better than they were a year ago. I know last year was a tough year for them, 13-12, which doesn't sound like a bad year, but for them, they're used to going to state. They're used to winning about 20 matches every year. I expect Longmont to be better this year. They've certainly got the talent, and they're going to challenge Niwot and Silver Creek in that Northern Conference. So those 3 teams, I think, are going to be a lot of fun to watch in that conference. And also watch out for Erie and Meade over in the Tri-Valley as well. Well, Blaine, let's move on to some football, and there's some good teams coming back. You excited for football?
I am, at all levels, to be honest with you. But yeah,
you're a big football guy.
I am a football guy. But yeah, around this area, I think, we'll get more in depth. But I think Longmont is really a team to watch this year.
Yeah, they are going to be a lot of fun. Just 6-5 a year ago. But let's check out the recap from last year, the win-loss records for everybody from a year ago. Erie, 6-5, 2-3 in the Tri-Valley League. They had a pretty good season last year after missing the playoffs for a couple of years. They got back there last year. Frederick, 1-9. They've had a couple of tough years. 0-5 in the Tri-Valley League. They did finally break their losing streak, but the Warriors looking to bounce back. Longmont, as we said, just 6-5 a year ago, but they're expected to be a lot better this year. Lions, 3-6. They are trying to climb back to what they used to be. I think they've got some more stability. They could get back into that winning side of things this year. Meade, 9-4. We'll talk more about them in a minute, but they had a breakout season last year, best season in school history to this point. Niwot, 3-7, still trying to get things rolling over at Niwot. Silver Creek, 12-1. Really had eyes on the state title a year ago until they lost in the semifinals and came up a game short of that championship game. And then Skyline, their best season in a long time last year, 7-3, 2-3 in the Northern Conference. So that's kind of recapping everything from last year, Blaine. And boy, you look back at that, and they didn't make the playoffs, but the team that surprised everybody last year was Skyline.
Yeah, it was a wild ride. I think that their under 500 conference record hurt them, but you've discussed this before. It really comes down to the RPI.
Yeah.
And some of the formulas and the things that go into it doesn't make everybody happy. And we can get into examples, but this probably isn't the time for that. But yeah, Skyline had a great year.
We'll get to that in October and November for sure.
We definitely will. But Skyline, they had a good season. Meade really impressed me following that team as they sort of continue their ascension. Yeah. Now I think in their 9th year as a school, 8th year, somewhere around there. But and then Silver Creek, as you mentioned, they got to the state semifinals. They were just sort of cruising along, and then they came up a game short of making it to the state championship game. But I think there's a lot of schools you want to watch out for. But I think most notably, I think Longmont, like I said, is going to be a team to watch. They have a lot of returning guys, and the most important position in football at any level is quarterback, and they have their junior quarterback returning.
Well, let's go through. Let's start. We'll get to Longmont here in a minute. We'll come back to them. Let's run through these teams in alphabetical order, and we'll start with the Erie Tigers. 6-5 a year ago, as we mentioned, and Blaine, Chad Cooper, his second year as the head coach over there. Noah Roper, the running back and linebacker, great two-way player for them. Nate Hackney, a lineman for them. He does a great job. They've got 8 returning starters, and that Erie team, I think they've got the ability to do what they did last year, at least, if not get a little bit better.
Yeah, absolutely. They've got some athletes. You're going to see a spectacular catch right here in the end zone. Erie, if they can put it all together, now that they've opened it up under their coach in his second year, I believe.
Chad Cooper.
We remember them as sort of being like a wishbone, option team, old school throwback, ground and pound. And now that they've opened it up and really showcased some of those athletes, I think that they're a team that's on the rise.
Yeah, Erie's going to be a lot of fun to watch this year, and I'm really looking forward to seeing Noah Roper, who should be a lot of fun playing running back and linebacker. Let's move on to Frederick, which for the first time in forever has a new head coach, as Thad Lear retired from coaching, at least after last season. It was a tough stretch the last few years for Thad, who did some great things, got them to the playoffs, and really Frederick, a tough school to win at. But he did some great things with Frederick. But Travis Peoples takes over in his first year. Again, Frederick 1-9 a year ago, 0-5 in the Tri-Valley. They have some good players, Blaine. Matt Olson, senior safety. Jacob Cole, senior linebacker. Mateo Rivas, the defensive end, had 11 sacks this year. These are all defensive guys. That's their strength this year. They only averaged, I think it was 9.5 points per game on offense last year. Their strength is defense, but they've got to get some offense if they want to be better than 1-9.
Yeah, they do, and that's sort of where the game of football as a whole is going, spread you out, see if we can outscore you. And I'm sure having a new coach, not only in terms of hearing a new voice, but schematically and stylistically, what are they expecting? Is there going to be a huge change from Thad Lear's approach? That's always hard. They've had consistency from the top for a long time now, but change isn't necessarily a bad thing. So maybe he can open up the offense and sort of, scoring double figures, like you were just saying. They struggle on offense, only scoring 9 points a game.
And it could also be the same. It could work the other way, that after some tough seasons, and a lot of these kids only know some tough seasons now. It's been a few years since Frederick's won, and for some of these older kids over at Frederick, maybe it's a good thing to not have to hear from Thad anymore. And Thad did a great job, and I've known him for a long time. And but sometimes the message gets stale from a coach, and so it might be a good thing for Frederick for some change. Well, let's move on to Longmont and a coach whose message hasn't gotten stale. Doug Johnson has been there for 18 years. This will be his 18th season, and has always done a great job for them. A team that Blaine is very high on. He's mentioned, we've talked about them in this show already, and Blaine, they were 6-5 a year ago, but they come in number 7 in Class 3 in the preseason rankings. They're expected to be pretty good. I mean, they've got a lot of kids back. I think 15 returning starters. Oakley Dennings back at quarterback, Drake Engelking, the linebacker, Austin Hassler, the linebacker. They're very good.
Yeah, it's perfect that you mentioned those 3 players. First and foremost, when you have a returning quarterback, that's the most important position on the football field. But then they have their 2 defensive leaders in Engelking and Hassler. So I think, the leaders are still there. The coach is still there. The quarterback has another year under his belt of experience. So I really think that Longmont's going to take off this year, and I expect them, now that they're down in the 3A classification, to really make a deep run.
Yeah, we thought last year when they moved down to 3A that teams like Longmont and Silver Creek were just going to eat up that level. Silver Creek kind of did, but Longmont, somewhat surprising 6-5 season, but I like what the pieces they've got this year. I think that defense is going to be very good, and Oakley Denning at quarterback, they could be a lot of fun to watch this year. And they'll challenge not only for playoff spots, but they could challenge for a state title in 3A.
Absolutely. I'll have to, evaluate the landscape of the teams in Colorado Springs, Pueblo. They'll always make noise. I believe Longmont opens up with Pueblo East at home next Friday. But they're going to be right there at the end of the day. They're going to be there late October, early November, making noise.
Well, a team that used to be there at the end of the day every year was Lions, and they have struggled a little bit the last several years, but they're coming in looking for better things this year. 3-6 a year ago, 2-3 in the 1A Northern, and Jason Yancey coming into his second season and hoping for some stability as he comes into that second year. Jake Laurenti was their top running back last year, also a linebacker. He's back, and Gabe Piznakis, the offensive lineman and linebacker, he's back as well. They've got some good pieces, Blaine, and that Lions team, they're not quite what they were when they were a 1A power several years ago, but this is a team I think can be a lot better than 3-6 and make a playoff push.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I know a lot of times with the smaller schools, you sort of get a class who can put a program on their back and just lead them for 4 years. And, it's just one of those things where you really got to look at who they're playing, who the other teams have returning. But Lions I think they're on the right path. They're on an upward trajectory right now. And, with some of these returning players, if they can really, hone in on their weaknesses from last year and just clean up a few mistakes, I think that they could easily challenge for a playoff spot.
Well, that'd be a great thing. It's always fun when Lions is good at football because it's one of the best atmospheres in this area. If you've never had a chance to go check out a game at Lions, you should. It's really fun out there over in the foothills to check out a game at Lions. So encourage you to do that, and hopefully that team is a little bit better this year. Now, Meade is a team, we're going to move on to them. They've been getting better year after year after year, and really the next step for them is making a deep run and potentially challenging for a state title. We'll see if they have the pieces this year. But Blaine, coming off of a 9-4 season, their best year that they've had, 4-1 in the Tri-Valley. Jason Clatton now in his 6th season, and again, he's just done a great job for that team.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite coaches in the area. You mentioned earlier sometimes the coach's voice getting stale or the message not getting across. I think he's got such a great pulse of his team. He knows, the right balance of encouragement and intangibles and mixing it with scheme and how to coach, and he knows the game. I can't say enough about him, so I fully expect him to continue their ascension and continue to improve this year.
Yeah, I've said it before, he comes from such a great football family. His father was a legendary coach at Pomona High School. His brother, who a lot of you have seen, Joel Klatt, the top college football analyst for Fox Sports right now, played quarterback at Colorado, played at Pomona, and a minor league baseball player as well. But Jason comes from just a great football family, and it's obvious that he knows the game pretty well. Now, they've got some good players playing. Derek Edwards is back, Dom Esters at receiver, Trace Lindeman at defensive back, and Nathan Mackey, I believe, is the top returning leading rusher in the state. So they've got some good pieces. They've got to find a quarterback, but I like what Meade can do this year.
Yeah, that's really what it comes down to is, does he have a quarterback who's ready to sort of carry the mantle for that program and be not only a leader on the field but off the field as well, because as you mentioned, they've got all the skill position players that Coach Klatt, needs and wants, really.
Yeah. Now, a team that has been struggling in recent years, we're going to move on to Niwot, and Blaine, it's been a tough several years for them. 3-7 a year ago. They actually started off fairly well, but struggled in the conference, going 0-5. They have a new head coach this year. Jeremy Lanter comes in for his first year. It's more change at Niwot, which they've had a lot of change. And we mentioned sometimes change is good. Too much change is not good, though, especially in football. I think they need some stability with that program. And it'll be interesting to see what Jeremy does in his first year as the head coach.
Yeah, you took my exact words. I think this is their 4th coach in 5 seasons, maybe their 4th coach in 6 seasons. But they've had so much change, so much turnover, so much instability in a sport where you want stability, you want consistency. It's going to be tough. They did, show some signs of life last year, but they lost their best player in Alex Olsner, and it might be a tough year for Niwot, but hopefully this coach is willing to stay, put in the time, sort of build the foundation for success over at Niwot.
That's the thing is Niwot fans, hopefully they're patient because it's going to take some time. You've really got to be there for 3, 4, 5 years to start building this thing. Some of the players to watch out for this year for Niwot: Nate Nielsen at receiver, Anton Sandoval at running back, and Braden Golan at linebackers. They've got some good pieces. They'll be competitive in some games and hopefully win some early season games, get some confidence. But I do expect it to be a couple years before we see Niwot really competing where they want to be at. Silver Creek is a team that's been competing really well for a long time, Blaine, and they come in number 4 in Class 3A, 12-1 a year ago. Made it to the state semifinals, and they've got some big-time pieces to replace. But Mike Apodaca's got that thing rolling.
Yeah, he does. He's another coach that I really like in this area. I like him because he moves along with the times of football. He can adapt really well, and that's beneficial when you need to replace pieces. You got to maximize your assets, and they may not have the Kari Harrisons anymore, or the George Ramirez, or the top flight skill position players.
Right.
But he knows how to coach and how to put his players in the best position to succeed.
Yeah, that's the thing is, other than there was that 1 or 2 year blip when they moved up to 4A that they struggled a little bit, but really he's got things going. And the move down to 3A was good for them. They're down there once again. They'll be just fine. I mean, Andrick Connectal at running back, TJ Blazin at wide receiver. They've got weapons. If they've got a quarterback, and they've been playing good defense in recent years, I expect Silver Creek. I don't know if they're 12-1 again this year, Blaine, but I think Silver Creek is a good team once again. I think they get to the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. I see them, at worst in the 8-4 range. I think they just have enough consistency, enough talent coming back to sort of mitigate the players that they do lose. And I think that Coach Apodaca is worth a handful of wins by himself.
Yeah. Now, for me, one of the more interesting teams in this area is Skyline. I'm interested to see what they're going to do after the great season last year. 7-3, just missed out on the playoffs. Had such a great start to the season, but then struggled a little bit in conference play, going just 2-3. But Coach Michael Silva, entering his 3rd year, turned around this program, and it was their first winning season in a long time. I mean, their best season over the previous decade was 5-5 playing. Lots of 1- and 2-win seasons in there, and I'm interested to see what they do. I like Silva a lot. I think he's one of the better coaches in this area. 13 returning starters, including Nate McGregor and Malachi Armendez. So they've got some pieces. I'm just interested to see if they can repeat what they did last year or even get any better.
That's the key. That's sort of where my mindset is right now. You hope it's not a one-year wonder. They were down in the basement for so long, and they finally get a 7-3 season, but didn't make the playoffs. So you hope that they can, not only improve, but make the playoffs, at least sustain some level of consistency and some level of excellence, because Coach Silva's got, a good thing going over there. A lot of it, is talent. You got to have the talent to have a 7-win season like they did last year, but the foundation is critical. Can he keep that foundation in place to where Skyline can be a place where football excels and the players expect to do well?
That's the thing is Skyline needs that second good year in a row so that those players do believe, and so that they don't see that it was a one-year thing. That's where Silva's message will really hammer home if they can win for a second year in a row. Well, Blaine, that'll do it for our preview show, and I'm excited for this year. I think it's going to be a lot of fun in all the high school sports, and as always, we're excited to bring it to you. We'll be here just about every week throughout the high school sports season, and ask you throughout the year, like us on Facebook, check us out on the web at longwalkchannel.com. Also, check out bocopreps.com where they help us out a lot, and so check out them. They'll get you up to date on everything going on in the high school sports in this area, as well as the Longmont Times Call. And as always, we want to thank you for watching. Thank Blaine for being with us this week, and we'll look forward to seeing you again next week.